Shalom Aleichem, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Shmoozing with Avi. Today, I could not be more honored and pleased to have with us a representative of one of the greatest Jewish cultural phenomenons in the world today. You all know them. 613 is a groundbreaking six-man a cappella vocal band that has brought an unprecedented style and energy to Jewish music with nothing but the power of the human voice. Juxtaposing the traditional and the contemporary, 613 is anchored by a strong Jewish identity fueled by soulful harmonies, intricate arrangements, and their very signature, dynamic, full band-like sound. And they are driven, just like we are, with a mission to connect Jews around the world with their heritage through music. This New York City-based group is an international phenomenon, both online, where their videos have been viewed over 18 million times, and in traditional media, having been featured on national media outlets like The Today Show, The View, CBS, CNN, The Huffington Post, Time Magazine, many more. And this is the one that gets me. They performed at the White House for a private audience for President Barack Obama, First Lady Michelle Obama, and Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Alea Hasholem, and Bruno Mars liked their Passover version of his song so much, he posted it on his own Facebook page. And here we are, Passover, celebrating 613 again. 8 award-winning albums have landed 613 among the top Jewish music artists on iTunes and Spotify. 613 has made appearances around the world for millions to rave reviews, standing ovations. I am so proud and honored to invite a representative of 613, Mike Boxer. Join us, please.
You're right.
Ashenim Dank, thank you so much for being part of our Passover celebrations. Could you tell us a little bit about, number one, your own personal background with Judaism, where you came from? Are you first generation, second generation, third generation? I'm always fascinated by, everyone's connection to the Jewish experience. And then tell us a little bit about how the band came together, when, and who all is in the band.
Sure. Let's see, am I second generation or third generation? Depends which side of the family you're looking on. But we recently rehashed all these discussions recently with unfortunately what's going on in Ukraine. Kind of prompted me and my brother to hey, can you remind me again where are Grandma and Grandpa from? And so we recently we're much like many others Eastern European Jewish immigrants. We have roots in Ukraine and Austria and Poland as well. So familiar story. I grew up going to public school with a strong Jewish supplementary influence. From going to synagogue and going to Hebrew school. Went to Binghamton University, which is one of the most densely Jewish populated secondary institutions in the entire world. I think just behind like Brandeis and Yeshiva U in terms of how many Jewish students there are, and there's a burgeoning community there. And that was where I met some lifelong friends who would form 613 with me. We did Jewish a cappella there in a group called Kaskeset, which was a larger ensemble. It was a co-ed ensemble, and there were a few of us guys who kind of like to on our own time, either at the Shabbos table, or just before and after rehearsals, just kind of jam out a little bit and do our own thing. And once we all graduated and realized that the real world doesn't really have extracurriculars, we really kind of missed singing together. We missed that, especially for all of us. It was we had a love of Judaism and of music that enhanced each other. So it was a real meaningful activity for us. And they all kind of tapped me. I was the baby of the group, and they said, "Hey, can you hurry up and graduate already so we can do a semi-pro group out here in New York?" And that was the genesis of 613, with four of us who attended Binghamton together. We reached out to a couple of new friends that we had made along the way to get number 5 and number 6, and that was about 20 years ago. And many of us have come and gone since. We've lost guys to things like demanding jobs, or having a second or a third or a fourth kid, as the case may be, and not really having time for things anymore. But thank God, every time things have turned over, it's opened up even newer, better doors for us. In that we'd been around longer, we'd been doing more shows, we'd been doing more challenging music, and we're able to attract even better talent. I'm now privileged to be in a group with some of the most talented musicians that I've ever worked with. That's it.
No question about it. I mean, listening to you guys, you are literally at the top of the field. I remember growing up with, Manhattan Transfer and Rockapella and Pentatonics, and there are just so many amazing a cappella groups out there, but you guys are right on top with everybody else. Did you study music? I mean, was this actually your field in college? And how many of the other members of the band studied and actually pursued careers in the arts?
Well, it's a testament to kind of the technical progression of what we did, in that when we started, we had myself and 3 other guys who were great singers, and really very, very heartsiga singers that really brought a great atmosphere to things, but had not had any kind of formal music education. In fact, I remember there used to be the way we would learn our music was I would have to record it into a multi-track and create the arrangements, oral versions of the arrangements, rather than putting them on a piece of sheet music, because no one could read it. But we still do that to this day, even though today we have people who are a lot of musicians, people who have degrees in music, because it brings a degree of memorization help, and also it's a great way to convey kind of the emotion of the music, rather than just putting it down on a piece of paper and hoping that people can follow the directions. So with the original 4 of us, was just me and a bunch of guys who loved to sing and put their hearts into it. And over time, we got more people. We've had a cantor who made a career change after being a lead in the Metropolitan Opera as a bass lead singer. We have now 3 or 4 career musicians who are not doing 613 as the only thing, but everything they do is musical. Everything they do to bring in that's what they do for a living. It really runs the gamut, and we also have we have school teachers who haven't done things professionally, but did the activity in college, and came to us kind of seasoned. We're pretty. We've made a progression.
I'm curious to find out. One of the things that I find most fascinating about the Jewish experience, and one of the reasons we created Why I Love Jewish as an organization that is now, kind of gone global during the COVID era, is the idea that everybody's kind of comes to Judaism a little bit, from a different perspective. I'm very curious to find out why you guys decided, number one, to go into a Jewish direction, because you could have been singing a cappella, anything. What made you go into the Jewish direction, and what were the different Jewish backgrounds of the different members of the band?
Yeah, well, we certainly could have done, just plain old secular a cappella, and just done some of our favorite, non-Jewish songs. But there are countless outlets to do that. And number one, why be like everybody else? We wanted, something that sets us apart. But more importantly, number 2 is, again, the guys in the group are, yes, some of them are career musicians and they want to be doing music for a living, but they also, Judaism is very important to them too, for any variety of reasons, and they like the interweaving of these 2 passions that they have, so a number of us have been in side a cappella groups. I was in a group called One Guy Upstate. We've got Lior, our bass, is in a group. He's going to kill me because I can't remember the name. Concrete is the name. I was going to say Cadence. It's not Cadence, it's Concrete. So, we have that outlet, should we want to do, our favorite secular artists. But for 613, it's what we do is by definition what 613 does is what these guys want to be doing. They want to have a place to do that. And you mentioned kind of the convergence of different backgrounds. It's one thing that is nothing short of a miracle, is that we have guys who are modern Orthodox, and guys who there's a spectrum within modern Orthodoxy as well. Where you kind of are the ultimate, of Mahmir of origins, and then you have people who are, put the modern in modern Orthodox, and are a little bit more liberal with, societal integrations and things like that. So we have a few guys who come from that tradition. We have people who grew up in the conservative tradition. We have people who went to multi-denominational. Carl is a alumnus of Gann Academy out in the Boston area. Where you can be anything you want Jewishly, and we have guys who, just happen to be Jewish, and for them this actually is kind of a rite of return to some of that, and that's how they're rediscovering it. And what's miraculous is that we haven't all killed each other yet. I don't know of too many other groups that are quote unquote coexisting. Now, of course, there's plenty of room to the left of us. A lot of female vocalists would beg to differ and say, like, okay, well, that's a nice variety of backgrounds, but there's this whole area of us who are kind of and we've gotten kind of into trouble for that. We've been called exclusionary, and or that we were espousing a particular Kol Isha point of view. But the truth is, we like the the camaraderie. We've come from a lot of all male ensembles. There's a homogeneity that makes it just almost like a fraternity. Not to mention the musical aspect of it is the blending and the power of uniformly male voices. Really does something for us. Really suits my arranging style. The way we like to perform. I'm actually a fan of after the all male sound. The next thing I like to listen to is all female groups. I think in a similar way, they've got a certain power in terms of their mix and their blend, and kind of their style, if you will. So that's kind of a misnomer. I've seen a lot of discussions online about 613. They don't like women. They don't include women. It's like, no, we're just being guys.
I mean, this may sound ridiculous, but I suspect there are probably a few of our viewers out there who don't actually know why 613. So would you mind taking just a minute or two to explain to those viewers why the number 613 is so important?
Yeah, I can date us for a minute, because when we were kind of getting off the ground, we needed a name. And the trend in the popular world at the time was band names with like numbers in them. So you had like Maroon 5, and you had Blink 182, and you had Matchbox 20. It was like all at the same time. So it was like, oh, we gotta be cool. We gotta have a band name with a number in it. And eventually, we said, like, okay, it could be just a number. And the number 613 is kind of a mystically significant number for us. Jews like to have tie numbers to things that mean things. Like the number 18 is on your shirt right now. Yes. It's it spells out the word chai, which is life. So numerically, it becomes significant. But 613 is the total number of mitzvot that are in the Torah. That both the positive commandments, you should always do this, and the negative commandments, you should never do that. So it's not just obviously the 10 commandments. There are other things that govern kashrut, govern the keeping of Shabbat, and just everything down to decent interactions with our fellow human beings. So 613 is a big number for us, and there were going to be 6 of us in the group, and that's there's a technical reason for that. It's just the way that it's a nice number of guys to have if you want to do these types of arrangements. So we made it 6 and then the number 13.
Now, you said you do the arrangements. So can you tell us a little bit about the process of picking a tune, deciding, what the music is going to be, what the lyrics and how the lyrics are going to be presented? Because it's so amazing and it's so intricate and it's so complex. Can you tell us about that process of creating these
Sure.
amazing tunes?
Yeah, well, it's not just me. I mean, I used to have to kind of shoulder that burden alone, and used to have to do all of the arrangements. But as we picked up a couple more talented guys, um, that I've been fortunate to have some other guys kind of step in, and so every time we do a 10-song album, I don't have to do 10 arrangements anymore. So I'll do 7, 8, I'll do even 6 sometimes, and what. There are two different kind of realms of songs that we do. What most people probably know us for is the stuff that we put online, which is usually twice or 3 times a year, coinciding with Passover, Hanukkah, and sometimes the high holidays. We'll do these parodies, which have somehow become a part of Jewish holiday culture, so we'll do that because we do enjoy it. We certainly do, but it also is what gets us the most media attention and the most viral potential, because people like to people like things that they already know, that they're already familiar with. So when we do, that's our main marketing vehicle. So we know every, twice a year, we're going to sit down and figure out what that's going to be. It's almost a bit of a round table discussion. Is there anything that's going to be really significant in pop culture around that time that we should be tapping into? And then if the answer is yes, is there a way to do that without forcing it? Is it going to come across as being, as being contrived or stupid? And we'll talk to a couple of the guys who help us do some of the writing of the lyrics, as well as we contribute as well. But we have a couple of supplementary guys who help us out with that. So we'll say, like, hey, if we were to do West Side Story this year, we want, first we'll talk about, what are the songs we would want to put in there, and then it's like, okay, if we did Maria, anybody have any good ideas for what we could adapt that to? And that was an easy one because it's just menorah. I was like, okay, that's super easy, very funny. Should we do There Is a Place for Us? And couldn't think of anything good. So like, okay, no, we're going to move on from that. And then from there, once we have our layout worked out, and what's going to go in and the order of things, I'll get to work, and I'll sit at home over the course of a few days. I will sit down and do the arrangement, and there's not really much of a process for that. It's really just as a musician, you hear chords, you hear motifs, you hear elements of the music that need to be represented in what you sing, and work them out and make sure that they are covering the right chord progressions at the right times. And then when those parts are done, we send them out. I'll post them online for each of our guys, and they'll download their parts. They will learn and memorize them, and the next time we're together at a rehearsal, we'll run those things online, so that make sure that we're able to perform them. And we also get to recording. Just so happens that every one of the guys in the group has a home studio set up, so they can now. We used to have to go to a studio and schedule time, but what we do now is I make the parts, I put them online. I say, Carl, this is your part. I say, Nathaniel, this is your part. Go to work. And a few days later, they send me files back online. We send them to our mixing engineer, and we have a song. That's how that works.
And did I miss the part about the parody lyrics and how they get written, and who is that also a group effort basically?
It is a group effort, and one of the other cool things about the way that the members of the group work together is they don't just bring the different Jewish backgrounds to the table, they also bring different skill sets and abilities to the table. So there are a couple of guys who may be funny in their own right, but have never really managed to figure out a great replacement lyric or anything like that. Whereas I would say, most of the stuff comes from, Nathaniel Ribner happens to be one of the guys who always manages to come up with something really cute for something or other. I put a lot of stuff in. Even Dan Singer, who is now an alumnus of ours, who the guy who's the cantor and former opera maven. He just loves this stuff, and so we invite him to like contribute. We have a big Google Doc, and it's kind of like, all right, guys, this is the songs that we're doing. This is the structure, the timing of it. These are the original lyrics that we are going to replace, and throw in what you think we should put here. And at the end of the day, almost everything that we've come out with is an amalgam of ideas and lyrics that have been come up with by a combination of Nathaniel, myself, Lior and Melnick, who is a bass, a couple of contributions from Morty Weinstein, and then of course we have Eliot Olshansky, who found us about, I want to say, when did we do the Hamilton? It was about 6 years ago. Just kind of wrote us an email and said, "Hi guys, you don't know me, my name is Eliot, and I have an idea for something for a video for you." And we get a lot of that, and we get a lot of people writing in, and we usually say, "That's wonderful, thank you, well, thank you for sharing." But he actually sent us this, this Hamilton stuff, and actually didn't want to write it down. He wanted to wrap it into the phone so that we could really get a sense of how it was going to be. So he did, and I'm listening to it and going, "This is very, very good." And it just so happens that we wanted to do a Hamilton Hanukkah this year, so that's how he got into the fold, and he's been contributing ever since.
Do you know if he's related to the great Olshansky from the Yiddish theater from the turn of the century?
I'm gonna have to ask him that.
Okay, I mean, I'm curious because Olshansky is not a common name, which actually, will lead me to a question a little later about different languages, that the Jews utilize, of course, Hebrew, Yiddish, and your feelings about that. But before we go there, the other amazing element of what you do, of course, are your incredible videos. So I'm curious about, so now you've taken the song, you've decided, you have created this amazing collaborative to rewrite the lyrics, create the parodies, the arrangements, the recordings, there's a master recording, but now you got to turn it into a visual. Can you tell us about that transition and how you decide what the visuals are going to be and how you go about creating these amazing, videos?
Yeah, so that also has been, a collaborative thing. With these sorts of projects, we generally invite everyone to participate in a discussion, but, they may feel like, hey, you know what, I don't have anything to offer this, and I just want to get to sleep a little earlier, so I'm going to pass on this particular Zoom meeting. But we actually, we have it, we'll sit down and say, okay, these are the lyrics that we're doing, these are the songs that we're doing. And it's often in tandem with the, the writing that we're doing. A lot of times we are discussing the visuals for the video at the same time that I'm doing the arrangement, at the same time we're coming up with ideas. It doesn't have to be that one is done before the other, although it helps. But, we'll sit there and we have an incredible director. His name is David Chabinski, and he started working with us for the Bohemian Rhapsody video that we did. We've had the pleasure of watching him grow as a professional over the years as well, and so he's got a fantastic eye. He knows how to get amazing footage. He's a fantastic editor as well. The fact that the video did so well was a testament to him. But over time, he's taken more of an active role as kind of a producer as well, and say, hey, here are some of the things that I'm thinking that we could do, some of the shots that we could get, and kind of West Side Story. He almost had sort of a storyboard for the whole thing, is where, okay, for the third song, I want to have this shot, and we're going to go around in a circle, and I want you to be lighting in a park or this or that. He and I scouted locations via Google Maps online, getting the satellite view. So we'll have a group discussion about like, hey, we are doing, this, we're doing West Side Story, or we're doing Billy Joel. What are some, what are some shots that we could get that are going to be relevant to the video, but not necessarily distracting from the lyrics? Because, we found that when you try to tell a story visually and you're also trying to tell a story lyrically, you divert the watcher's attention, and they pay attention to neither, and the video doesn't engage. So what can we do that's not going to distract, but also will be visually interesting? We know that, as most, many marketers do, that the first 3 to 5 seconds of your video are really the most important, because that's, in the world we live in, that's the amount of time that you have to engage somebody before they're moving on to the endless ocean of other content that they have at their disposal. So we try and think of a great opening visual, sometimes even before the song. But it's all, the production, the writing, the arrangement, the video, it's often sometimes going on all at the same time. Because what we have started trying to do is to condense the amount of time in which we get things done. Because, somebody can try and catch lightning in a bottle, but if you try and plan a video, let's say, 4, 5, 6 months in advance, you have an easy production schedule, and you can really, dot your I's and cross your T's. But by the time the release comes around, it's yesterday's news. We were going to do a Dear Evan Hansen Hanukkah because we thought the movie was going to, there are people who are obsessed with that show. The movie came out and it flopped, and in a week nobody was thinking about it anymore. So we've tried to kind of come right up against the wire with that type of stuff.
Have you ever tackled any Sondheim?
Well, other than West Side Story, I can't say that.
Right. I'm curious, because now Company is such a big, success in New York. I wonder, Yeah.
Well, that was, there are some things where it's just, we know it'll be a slam dunk. There are exceptions. We did, it just so happens that, when we were doing Bohemian Rhapsody, we did do that pretty close to the borderline there, because the movie was coming out. But with Star Wars, we actually, we made that decision to do that about 1.5 years in advance. So I remember there was one day when they announced that the final Star Wars movie, The Rise of Skywalker or whatever it may be, was going to come out on a certain date. And a light bulb went off in my head, and I typed into Google, when is Hanukkah? And it was like the same exact time. So I said, all right, guys, we got to do John Williams songs. Let's do that. And everyone was like, yeah, let's do that. And then the same thing happened for West Side Story. It was like, all right, is there any more legendary a musical? Well, I mean, maybe Hamilton, but we've already been there, done that. As musicians, just because of the crazy sonorities and the off the beaten path, especially for its time, we were just really excited about taking that on from a musical perspective. So that was something we knew 1 year in advance that we wanted to do. But when we did Uptown Funk, that was right before, because we didn't want that to fade into top 40 obscurity. So it was often a race to the finish line.
I mean, I love, that your mission is to connect Jews with their heritage, because, as I said earlier, this is primarily what our organization is dedicated to from a cultural perspective. I've actually taught at university level of how our history has really influenced mainstream culture. We, in many ways, have laid the foundation for mainstream culture through our contributions. Have you ever thought about the academic elements of what you do? I mean, the continuing of a tradition that goes back, the parody concept in the Jewish world, Mickey Katz, Alan Sherman, Weird Al Yankovic, for that matter. The idea that you are a chain in a long tradition. Have you ever thought about the academic elements of what you do?
Sure. I think applying the term academic to it might be a little bit generous. Because when you think about, and Alan Sherman and Mickey Katz is stuff that I grew up on. My parents had the 33s and had record players, and now you know how old I am. Although people have, it's back now, vinyl's back. I mean, really, there are two missions, and they really jive with each other. One is we want to be successful as a band, as an act, as a performing artist. We want to get out there and get hired for shows. We want to sell our music. We want to be successful with music as a vocation. And the way that we do that is to get notoriety and to get brand awareness. And the way that we do that is we put out videos that we know are going to go as far as possible. And the way that we know they're going to go as far as possible is if we can do stuff that strikes a chord with the Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur Jew, that knows that they are Jewish and maybe does a couple of traditions a year but wasn't really into it, doesn't really necessarily see how something that maybe they see as antiquated fits into current society, especially when everybody's got everything at their fingertips at every second. But in reaching that many people, that's where we're doing kind of the altruistic difference too. So, when we started out, it was like, hey, what do we got? What do we have to do to make a name for ourselves? Let's just keep pushing and keep pushing. But then, as we started being more successful at that, we would get emails from people in the South going, I'm one of 5 Jews in my town, and I was always I didn't feel comfortable, with people kind of like knowing who I am. I always kind of downplayed my own traditions, and I feel so alone about it, and I don't really have any place to pick up on that. But I've learned, things that I've seen in your songs that make, it's fun, and you tied it in with, Ariana Grande and Bruno Mars, and Taylor Swift, and so now it's connecting to that other life that I have, and it makes me feel more connected. Or hey, there was a line in one of your songs. It was about Kitniot, and I didn't know what that was, and I looked it up. So you drove me to find out more and to learn more. And then there are even people who say, like, I play this in my Hebrew school classroom. We break it down line by line. It's a teachable moment. So, I don't think we didn't set out to be, a positive influence on the Jewish world per se. But I think once we realized that we could be, it's definitely become, part of the mission, and it's become something that's incredibly fulfilling for every one of us.
And I was going to say, according to the latest demographic studies, 85% of the Jewish people are basically unaffiliated,
right,
with any, specific Jewish organization, temple, or anything else. And yet I think those are primarily the people you have been able to tap into. In addition to those who are affiliated, obviously, you have successfully reached more than only the Jews, and those Jews you have found are probably many of them unaffiliated. So that's an amazing mitzvah, certainly one of the 613, bringing Jews back into the fold and helping them access their Judaism. Did you have someone who understood, what you've succeeded in doing, both culturally, both musically, visually, but also from a business perspective? You are successful from a business perspective. Was there someone in the band from day one who was more of a business mind, who kind of said, let me, help to organize the business side of all this?
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges for me was we did have guys who were of a business mind. The original 4, we had myself, who at the time I was a music teacher. You had somebody who was running an online business, which in 2003 was not nearly as commonplace. You had a guy who was a controller at a hedge fund, and you had another teacher. And they came from the various traditions. So you had your business guy who was modern Orthodox, and that was the only way that he knew how to think. And you had me, who was not all that business affiliate, at least not business experienced. I had a business degree from Binghamton, but I was coming from the conservative background, or kind of the traditional background, and it's been the culmination of all those years that I've spent around all those different people, and kind of absorbing all those different points of view, and then having had the benefit of 10 years of viral videos existing to cut our teeth a little bit, to succeed, to fail, and to start getting that 30,000 foot view of all Judaism and figuring out, okay, what's going to be the most successful in engaging people who aren't engaged or who may be engaged and want to go further, as well as getting us out there. And thankfully, the ways to do both of those things are one and the same. So we are rewarded with greater success when we have the privilege of achieving societal objectives, if you will.
Right. Before we go, because we're starting to get closer to the end of our interview, I'd love to know about your feelings as a group towards the Jewish historical culture. I mean, we kind of touched upon it earlier with languages. Have you all ever thought about tackling, some of the linguistic elements of the Jewish people, whether it's the Yiddish language or Hebrew specifically, and kind of bringing in to people's awareness things that may not be as familiar as some of the things that you do?
Yeah, I think so. Kind of in between the commercial things that we do, with the parodies online. We've put out 8 albums of primarily original material, and we haven't done any Yiddish, with the exception of we did one Yiddish cover song of a song that came out in the 2000 or something like that. It was called Gelt by a guy named Lipa Schmelzer. It would bring a great deal of satisfaction and warmth to me to do a Yiddish song. I've got my wife, both of my in-laws are Yiddish speakers as a first language. Most of my grandparents were Yiddish speakers, if not as a first language, then close to it. So that's really, kind of the foundations of all what's there. We haven't found it to be quite as flashy as, doing some of the, most recent, Orthodox covers, or taking, some original ideas and putting them to music. And right now we're kind of at a interesting juxtaposition in terms of, are we going to do that anymore? Because unfortunately, the way that the music sales landscape has worked, sales are a mere pittance of what they used to be, and so it's not becoming sustainable to really put out the music in between the stuff that we do that is the more commercially successful. So we're going to be talking about what we do with that type of stuff. But God willing, we have a couple of great years. Things are coming back. We find ourselves with a budget surplus, and we just do it anyway because we love it. And we'll put out album number 9, and it'll have 2 Hanukkah songs and 2 Passover songs, and then it'll have 6 songs, one of which is an original, and maybe it'll be some Yiddish too.
I mean, because like songs like By Mir Bist Du Shame, right? Which is probably the most famous Yiddish song because it became part of global mainstream culture, sung in almost every language. Songs like, Oifen Weg steht a Bäum, or Oifen Pripyatchik, or Rozinkis mit Mandlin. These are such a big gesund, such classic tunes in the Yiddish culture, and yet they've been lost to generations. The last couple of generations, your parents, your grandparents know this, but very few of your generation, certainly younger, have access. So I'd love for you guys to be able to bring some of that back.
Yeah. We do get the pleasure of doing that in concert,
Right.
especially. We usually know the type of audience that we're walking into. We'll say to the synagogue, the synagogue will say to us, we have 2,800 families and they're burgeoning, and we have a preschool, and then other synagogues will say to us, like, the average age is 60. Everyone's retired. So when we know we are going into a more learned, experienced crowd, let's put it that way, that's when we've done songs like By Mir Bist Du Shame and Oifer Pripyatchik, and especially when we get to go on what we call Shabbos gigs, where someone's having a bar mitzvah in shul, and then they're having a kiddush or a luncheon afterwards, and they are conservative or Orthodox, which means they would like to have some entertainment, but they're not going to plug in a guitar, they're not going to plug in a microphone. So here we are, Shabbos friendly, a cappella. So we what's it called? We break stuff like that out, because we're not just doing our own stuff. We are going, serenading these people having, having simchas at their, at their lunch tables. So, we've done my Yiddish Mama, and let's see, by Mir Mr. Shane is the biggest one. We all know the lead vocal at this point because we've all heard it 10,000 times. And I need to ask, because this is I could be totally wrong about this, but have you been an MC for Jewish Heritage Day at the former Shea Stadium?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
I know I was there once doing something. It was also my friend Jake Ehrenreich, I think, who did it as well.
It may have. Yes, it may have been. I think so. We did that gig, if you want to call it that, I think 5 or 6 times before they changed the way that they did it, and I remember that. Another member of the group, Craig, who is about 9 or 10 years younger than me, but we bonded over the fact, and he tells this story over and over again, just always forgets that he has brought it up before. But the first time I think we did Shea Stadium, he was in the stands, and he said, "I remember I saw you guys," and he said, and also they had this guy, and he introduced the players, but he did them all as Yiddish names. So he said it was Moish Piazza, and he said, I love that so much.
Yeah, that was actually not me. That was Jake Ehrenreich. I did the same thing. I live in Florida, so I did the same thing at Marlins Stadium a couple of times. Jewish Heritage.
We did that one year as well. But the thing he always loves to recount to me is that and then they did Benny Agbayani, and he just said Benny Agbayani. Right. Because you don't have to change it.
Right, and he sang "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" in Yiddish.
Yes,
that was one of his big things. That's so great. Mike, tell us a little bit before we finish. It's Passover, which is my favorite Jewish holiday for so many different reasons. The other one is Purim, where we get to drink and get drunk. But Pesach to me has always been, in many ways, the most important, because we open up our doors, we bring in strangers to join us, Jews, non-Jews. It's all about freedom. And freedom is something all cultures share, the desire for freedom, especially nowadays as we look at what's happening in the world. Can you share with our viewers what you guys have coming up now here for Passover?
Yeah, I think the time jump is a funny thing, because as we speak, we're in production, but when your viewers see this, I think it will be out. But it's what we think is going to be, and at least for me and a couple of the other guys, is a really special one, because we're getting to, we've done this before. We've taken on some source material that we really respect and we really love, but a musical hero for a lot of us is Billy Joel, and so he hasn't put out an ounce of new material in literally 30 years. Yet somehow he's sold out, 85 performances in Madison Square Garden in a row. So there are times where we say, like, okay, if we're not going to catch lightning in a bottle, we're not going to try and do a video of movie that's coming out at a particular time. Let's just not try and do that, and let's just do something that we know is just classic. Maybe we in the future we'll do. We'll do classic rock or something like that, because we're not trying to do something that is particular at the time, but we know it's timeless and it's always appreciated. West Side Story happened to represent both of those things, because it was pertinent at the time, and also because it's legendary and timeless. But I taught myself piano, learning to play Billy Joel's songs. I think of him as the consummate songwriter. And it just so happens that, there are some other white Jewish guys that also love Billy Joel, and some of them are in our group. So we said, okay, this is going to be the year. We're putting together a medley of Billy Joel stuff. Our Pie in the Sky dream is that it'll somehow reach his people, and maybe we'll find ourselves doing For the Longest Time in one of his shows with him. But that's will likely remain a pipe dream. But
I don't know. I'm not so sure. You guys have mazel, man.
We'll have to see.
Great mazel. So,
but yeah, it's also our way of saluting him in 50 years in the music business. It's more than that, but his debut solo album, I believe, was 50 years ago, and his the record company's really playing that up. So it's a nice little culmination of that time.
oh, that's wonderful. How exciting. I can't wait to see it. Anything else you'd like to share with our audience before we take our leave, Mike? Any message for the people?
Other than how appreciative we are to have been featured on your program, just find the video, take a look at it, send it to your friends. We're always appreciative of people who help spread the word about it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I could not be more honored to have had with us today Mike Boxer of 613, one of the most important cultural phenomenons of the Jewish people in the 20th and 21st centuries. And I'm not being hyperbolic. I mean, you guys have reached millions and millions and millions of people with a message of hope and love and tradition, and yet you've modernized it in a way that no one else has done. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Go to our website, whyilovejewish.org, and continue to support our work. We have a lot of programs coming up, and we look forward to seeing you again. Seid gesund, everybody.